underdog. I've been through it all. I can never fall.
It's been really fulfilling because I crave. I talked about this the other day. I crave like intellectual conversation.
Yeah.
So that's something that like fuels me.
For sure.
Like I feel stagnant if I don't get it.
Yeah.
So.
And there's something about creating space to hear other people's stories.
Absolutely.
Right? Like when you give opportunity for people to share, there's always more, right? Like that lies beneath what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And so I think like that's a very rewarding thing, especially in terms of like the underdog.
Yeah.
Like those are typically people who nobody asks.
Yes.
Like unless you are curious enough to say like,
for sure.
You know?
I had my barber on there and my barber was like thrilled.
No, honestly, because why not? Because they have a story, you know?
He has a story. He interacts with people every day.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want those stories. Like so many times we hear from the top people and I feel like there's a whole group of people that we can all learn from.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm an underdog, so,
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I'm curious. We got to talk more about that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so tell me, first off, Miss Vanessa Bryant, I'm happy to have you on the platform.
Thank you.
Super curious to learn about what it is to be a soul coach and how you kind of got to that point in your journey.
Yeah. Well, it's not a simple question, but I'll start with the soul coach. So soul coach practitioner is it is a specific training that Denise Lynn is an author of a book called The Soul Coach Technique, which sincerely I was in search of something different. I was going through different certifications at the time to become a life coach, but me myself, I was in a journey where I'm like, I just need to shake off some of this stuff that I felt like I couldn't break through, right?
For sure.
And so she teaches different modalities in that book, like clutter clearing and how that changes your energy, right? And that's a thing.
Yeah.
When you are, when your house or whatever your environment is cluttered, that's how you feel, right? On the inside, it reflects that. So there's clutter clearing. There's different meditation techniques. Certain things that I read in that book that I was like, as I'm coaching people, sometimes what you realize is like they just need something else to help them shift, right? To make those changes. Like they might know it needs to be done, but there's a block.
How does that feel from a coach's standpoint to realize that what they may need, whatever the technique may be, exactly what they need? How does that feel from a coach's standpoint?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I actually tell people when I coach them, like, it is actually not my job as your coach to tell you the answer. It's my job to hold a mirror up as you find your own. And so that's the deeper meaning behind coaching to me, and why soul coaching is so important is that I, at the end of the day, don't want you to need me.
For sure.
I want you to understand and to be a helpful guide to your own answers, because then you can really continue this work. Because it's not Vanessa who gave me the answer to what I need to do, but it's actually me who found it myself. However, I had a support system. I had a guide through that process. I learned a technique, and I'm just continue to use clutter clearing because that's an easy thing to like visualize, right? That now, like, if I get lost in that journey again, I know I can come back to something that helps me, right? Get to a space where I feel healthy again. But it is a rewarding job. Like being a coach is super rewarding in that I get to hold hands and walk a journey beside people and be a support. But I am not the answer. I always tell people, you have your own answer.
You're a piece to the puzzle.
I'm a piece of the puzzle.
For sure. And it has to have, I can imagine it holds you accountable as well in your journey.
Oh, absolutely. I tell people actually at PAC, every time I have a cohort, I say, look, when I was asked to do become a coach on PAC, come on board, there was only 30 guys. So it was different. Now we've expanded and grown. So it's been fun to see the evolution. But I walked in super excited. I was ready to help these guys. I had 8. I did not realize that at that time I was going to sign up for that and come home, and my home experience was going to be totally different. I entered a phase of divorce that I was not anticipating.
Wow.
So to your point of holding people accountable, listen, when I tell you that was tough, talk about transitions, navigating that.
I can imagine.
But it held me accountable. I still had to show up for them.
Yeah.
And it truly became a gift. I'm going to be honest with you. As a coach, we have to be careful, right? Like, I wanted to make sure I could still show up in the best way and hold space for them while also navigating my own personal, transition.
Absolutely.
But it did hold me accountable to make sure I could do that, which means I got to do my own work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When I'm not working, I got to do my own work.
Yeah.
And so I do think that the best coaches, we're not gurus because we've got it all together. We've done the work to get to where we are. We have that personal experience that has led us to a place where we're like, listen, I want to share it with you. I want to help you in some way, shape, or form. Yeah.
I love that. I want to talk about PAC a little more, but before that, I just want to ask you, in my experience with dealing with people, I've noticed I'm an empath. So like I wear a lot of people's energies. I want to know what that feels like for you. Did you find yourself in the beginning of those stages? Did you find yourself worn out from, you're doing powerful things with these people? Yeah. What did that feel like? And how did you kind of revamp your energy if you needed to? No,
you're absolutely right. I think as a coach, you're empathetic, right?
Yeah.
Like best coaches typically have that. So you can't pour from an empty cup, and we're constantly pouring.
Yeah.
And so it is that reminder that, like, again, I got to do my own work, breath work, meditation.
I got to
put
breath work.
Yeah, breath work.
Okay.
So again, another soul coach technique that we might teach you, just taking mindful pauses in your day. That box breath, which is 4 breaths in, breathe in, hold for 4, release for 4, out, and repeat that a few times. Like, those things are little small energetic boosts that we can do, but like are almost necessary sometimes, even between clients.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm having one-on-one coaching calls, I have to be careful how close I space them together, right?
Absolutely.
Because I need to make sure I've got the same, enough energy to give to the next client and
that's
the next
real.
client.
Yeah, that's real. Tell me a little bit about PAC and the impact that it's had on you. You obviously said when you started, you had 8 guys, and this thing has grown to there's 120 something guys here.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what that experience has been like for you.
It's so interesting because when I first came into coaching, it came from a space of, again, wanting to help people transition powerfully. The first transition that I think is pivotal in my life is that I have actually a background in nursing. Okay. I was a pediatric oncology nurse for 8 years.
Okay.
Have my daughter.
Yeah.
At the time was married to somebody also in the professional sports world. Was back in school for my master's. And went back to work after having my daughter. And sincerely, one day I had a panic attack at work. Like, was feeling so stressed out and so burnt out and so unequipped to really show up as my best self in any space. So I was completely overwhelmed. And I remember calling my husband to say, I can't do this anymore. And the only thing that makes sense right now is that I focus on family, right? I don't want to stop school because I was like almost done.
For sure.
I said work is something that we're in a position where I have choice in that. And my work family at the time was like so supportive. Yeah. Being a nurse is a passionate job. Like, so it was tough to walk away from that as well because you build those relationships. Yeah. I just knew I was going to be a chief nursing officer of a hospital one day. So I was letting go of what felt like a dream, but happy to do it. So it's that duality, right? Of like grieving this loss, but also grateful for the opportunity to have choice. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And so in that transition, I was lost. I had attached purpose to my title. Right. And like being a mom is amazing. And there was purpose in that, sure. But also, who am I outside of that?
Yeah.
And so when I started coaching and my journey, it was to help people through that transition. Because when I felt lost in that, I didn't feel like I could share it. Right. But as I grew more courage to share my story, I realized a lot of people share the same difficulties.
Absolutely.
Right? And I, at the time, was speaking mostly to women. So I was gathering women around, you know, sharing my story, creating space for them to share theirs, and helping them navigate what it could look like, equipping them with tools. What did I need? How did I then show up? How did I make the turn? And so Jay and Robbie were instrumental. I had taken a course with them that they had at the time to help develop my skills. And when PAC needed more coaches, they reached out like, hey, V, we need you. And I was like, you sure? How am I going to connect to NFL players? They're going to be looking at me like, what? And they were like, no, V, like what you're doing, the work of, you know, helping people transition powerfully, like that's what these guys need. I'm like, if you say so, you know? And so I trusted it. And I realized in that moment that like, yes, transitions are universally hard, right? Whether you are an NFL player, professional athlete, whether you're a nurse or a mom navigating that, it doesn't matter. They're tough. And so it was really cool. It actually, you know, we say here, exposure breeds expansion. It expanded me like crazy.
I love
and
that.
then it gave me purpose. And I didn't realize like all that work I was doing beforehand prepared me for that next big transition that I was walking through and held me accountable at the time. PAC gave me purpose when I needed it because, things like divorce, I mean, it challenges you at your core.
I can imagine,
you know? It cuts deep into every like really difficult inner critic voice that you have. Inner self-limiting belief was loud at that time, you know? So to have a space that could actually pour into me as well. I was surrounded.
Yeah, I love that. What's interesting is, I mean, I didn't know you were a nurse prior to, you know, this journey, but it seems like you've always been, and I don't know if this is subconsciously in your mind, you've always been into serving people.
Absolutely.
Is that something that is fulfilling for you? Did you know that you always wanted to serve people growing up, or what? How did that kind of come about?
That's a good question. I do think it's something that I found when I was in search of what is my purpose outside of a title. Like it's that what are your core values, right? We talk about that a lot at PAC. And service is definitely one of them. Connection is another. I do have a heart posture for people. And so I did realize that early on, later on, I guess, but early into my coaching journey is, this is kind of related to nursing in the way of like, I'm serving people in some way, shape, or form. As a kid, I think I was always kind of the friend that was like, are you okay? You know, checking in with the friends, making sure everybody was good. In my family, I'm the youngest, I'm the baby, and I'm the only girl. And so I do think that just the way my mother raised me was kind of like, we take care of the household together, you know, making sure my brothers were good, even though they were older than me. My dad, like that was just kind of our family culture. And so that's probably where the seed was planted for sure.
I love that. Tell me a little bit about what living purposely or purposefully means. I saw that in your Instagram bio. And I always think it's interesting going into people's Instagram and seeing what's in their bio, because it kind of tells you a core pillar that they may believe in, and there's always a story behind that. So I would love to hear your take on that.
Absolutely. You know, I just mentioned core values. So another one of my core values is purpose. And we all have it. Right. And so for me, living purposefully means being connected to what that purpose is. Finding ways, even if it's not in your job necessarily, to be connected, to show up as you and what your purpose is at all times, because that's where we find true fulfillment. It's also intentionality. Like, I don't want to just live, you know, I want to live purposefully. You know, I want to leave imprints and impact in people's lives. And so that's what that means to me.
I love that. That's something that I think transitioning out of the NFL for me was at the top of my list. Like, I think for a long time, I thought that was going to be the height of what life was. Playing in the NFL, having that lifestyle and things like that. And then you quickly find out when the game is over, you're maybe in your 30s, if you're lucky to have a career like that. But outside of that, I wanted to impact people more than anything. And I didn't feel like I did that the right way within my career. So that's what kind of brought me to starting a podcast and having these conversations with people, because I think that there's so much power in them. So I'm curious what you feel like your purpose is. Do you feel really connected to that now? Like even more so when you play? You know what? I think I know for a fact one of my purposes is to be a funnel for people. And that's like maybe through connections, maybe through hearing people talk and giving them my input or impression or whatever I think, you know, my thoughts on what they're saying is. But at the top of the list, it has to be being a funnel, because I've noticed that has come up within my life so many times. A lot of people reach out to me, hey, I'm looking for this, or hey, can you help me with this? And sometimes that may wear on your energy, but when you realize that you're lucky to be in that position, that people trust you with their things, then you realize, okay, I'm actually a funnel for a lot of people in my life. So I would say that's probably my purpose now. I
love the visual of that, like visualizing the funnel of like people coming to you and you being able to filter, hey, I got something for you here, there, and everywhere.
And that's what it is. And I think sometimes early on I had the wrong mindset, you know, because you can get in a selfish mindset, like I'm the funnel for a lot of people. Well, where's the funnel for me, you know? But that is the funnel. Like I'm being funneled these people so that I can now put them in, you know, position to help them have success or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So
I love that. And I think something you said that we tend to forget, but I want to make clear to people, purpose can feel really big. Like the idea of purpose, especially if you're like, well, I don't really know what mine is. I think sometimes it can feel really big. Yeah. But if it's as simple as, sometimes I'll ask people, well, ask your friends, like, what are you to them? Yeah. How do you show up? Yeah. You know, and sometimes it's like, you know, you're my connector, or you're my peace, or you're my, you know, like, it's simple, right? You're a funnel for me to like help navigate. No, I trust your advice, you know, stuff like that. It's important that we don't make purpose feel so big that we feel disconnected to it. You know? Yeah. I have found that to be really important. Like if I'm a nurturer, like that's another one that people will tell me, like I nurture people, serve people, like service and nurturing, like that can show up anywhere. And it doesn't matter how big or small that is. Yeah. That's purpose.
Yeah. And it's really how you view it, you know?
Absolutely.
And how that person that you're nurturing views it. Like that's their definition of you. Like you said, you know, you can ask your friends or whoever is close to you how they view you, and that's who you are. Yeah. You know, regardless of, we talked about it earlier, the inner self-critic that tells you you're not that person. Yeah. That's who you are when they tell you that. So it's always powerful to hear that insight. A little bit of I have another question for you as far as advice, and what type of advice you would either give your younger self, or what type of advice you would give somebody who is looking to kind of let go of some things that are wearing on them. I know you spoke about that earlier, and I think that was super impactful. So what type of advice would you give?
Ooh, that question is always it's like, oh, I would say so many things. But I think when I visualize, and it's funny because we talked a little bit about it, I think, but the significant partner program, within that, I ask them to visualize their younger self, and usually like 8 years old. Yeah. So when I see her, I would tell her, like, you know, you are worthy. You know, you're worthy, and you're deserving of grace. I was super hard on myself growing up, just high achiever. Always wanted to be the best at everything. I'm sure, perfectionist probably, a little bit, you know. Yeah. And so I think the younger me, hey, listen, like that brings about great results. Absolutely. But it can lead to a lack of fulfillment when you're feeling like you always gotta be better and better and better. It's never good enough. Yeah, so really just telling her you were good enough, you know, you're worthy. And to give yourself grace in the moments that don't always make sense, or you feel like you fell short, it's okay, because it's going to work out. And I think that that's what we need to give ourselves more of, a little bit more grace and a little bit more credibility of like what you're doing is enough. Ooh. You know?
Yeah, credibility is big. I think sometimes we get into the space of feeling like, especially in today's day and age, like we're not doing enough.
Ever.
All the time.
Like, you need more likes. You need more followers. Like it's everywhere. It's ingrained in, you know, it's like at work, you need more money. You need more this. And I will be honest and raise my hand and say, like, I was one of those people. It's like, yes, I felt blessed, but I also struggled with the discontentment of like, but what's next? Right.
Yeah.
And so now it's like being present in the moment, be where your feet are, right? Appreciate what you're doing, but also like acknowledge everything you've already done to get you to where you are.
Yeah.
Sure. Set goals, right?
Absolutely.
Sure. Be a high achiever, achieve those things that that you want for yourself, but also along the way, stop to acknowledge the work you've put in.
Yeah, that's powerful. I always have to tell myself that you have to be grateful for what you have, but also within that, it's okay to want more from yourself, but it has to start with being grateful for what you have.
Absolutely.
If you're not grateful for what you have, but you constantly want more, you're not being where your feet are. You're not present in that moment. So that's something that I remind myself of all the time.
Absolutely. Gratitude is key. Like actually, when I realized that I needed to work on that, I put myself on a daily gratitude challenge where every single day, and I couldn't repeat the same thing every day.
Okay.
I had to write something down in a journal that I was grateful for. And the reason why I forced myself to, I actually love journaling. That's a part of my soul coaching process. I'm always going to tell people, I'm going to get you a journal. Yeah. We're going to start this process because it's so powerful to actually write.
Exercise.
And I love your phone. Like I do that too, but there's something about writing it down that changes the release process and all those things. Anyway, I started a gratitude journal daily, couldn't repeat the same thing. And that really helped me to be present, number one, but also stop and acknowledge, right? I still had the desires of the things that I'm searching for, or aiming for, or what have you. But can I stop and be present in today?
Yeah.
And be grateful.
How challenging was that for you?
Some days it was hard to find a different word, right? Or a different thing that I'm grateful for. Yeah. Just because sometimes you want to repeat the same thing. It's easy to be like, I'm grateful for my family. Of course. Like every single day, we're grateful for our family. I'm grateful to wake up. And those are great. But like, can you dig deeper than that? And so when I force myself to dig deeper than that, you really do find like, wow, there's a lot to be grateful for. Yeah. There's a lot to be grateful for. It wasn't hard to find things to be grateful for, but it was, what was difficult was stopping to think more deeply and intentionally about all of the things that I have to be grateful for, rather than just, I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for a house over my head. I'm grateful for my family. Okay, what else? And it's like the small things. I'm grateful for that somebody called me today. I'm grateful that, I have just the littlest things. And those little things, you stop to be like, wow, there is really, truly so much within our day to be grateful for, or that I'm proud of myself for. And so those are the things, right, that tune that voice down, that inner critic voice down, and amp the volume up of that inner champion that's like, hey, let's go get this thing, but also along the way, let's be proud and grateful for all the things that we already have.
I love that. Yeah, journaling for me was something that within the process of me transitioning out of the league, I spent a lot of time doing, but it was in a different aspect. A lot of my limiting beliefs that I believed were inside of myself were the things I was writing down. And I'd write them down, but I'd rip the page out and I'd burn the page. Yeah. And that was just like a way for me to, if I felt like it was heavy that day, that was a way for me to let it go. Absolutely. And symbolize that that no longer belongs. And it may take 4 days of doing that before my mind is telling me that, okay, this is gone.
You actually feel free.
Exactly. But I go back to that all the time when I need to. I have seasons of journaling. It's a seasonal thing for me. I think as the year goes on and it gets a little colder and, gloomy
hibernating
outside,
a little bit. There's something about that.
That's when I spend my time journaling, and that's when I found it to be the most helpful. Yeah. Like when it's nice outside, I like being outside, and I'm always like talking to myself within myself.
No, for sure.
That's just a part of I'm always having that dialogue with myself. So the journaling thing is super powerful. Yeah. And I think
what you said is so important. Like journaling doesn't have to look like Dear Diary. People kind of think that you have to have this certain prescription of what it looks like. And it's really what feels good to you.
Yeah.
You know, I love what you said about seasons of journaling. There's something to that.
Yeah.
In moments of transition, I'm definitely writing a lot more. I'm releasing a lot more in that way. The gratitude journaling, I like to keep that, because if I am searching for, you know, if there's a day where I'm just like, I feel really disconnected from gratitude, I have a whole book now that I can go back to
and reread
and like that'll change my mood like that. So that's one you want to keep. But also there's others that you're like, nope, I just want to rip this page out, tear it and release it, burn it or whatever. So there's so many different ways to use that tool.
There is.
And it's not a one size fits all. It's like what feels good to you right now, whatever season you're in, and using that to help you.
100%. Yeah. There's no blueprint on how, you know, when I first started journaling, I thought it had to be Dear Journal.
Yeah.
And then I had to go into it. But like, whatever works for you,
find that
and do it. You know, everyone says the work works. Like whatever works for you, you just have to find it and do it. And that's your process.
Absolutely.
You know, and it can look different from whoever you're comparing it to, but if it works for you, that's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So.
And I think, like, you know, back to your original question of soul coaching and just as a life coach in general, I think our job is to help introduce modalities, right? So you can say, hey, I subscribe to that, and I don't subscribe to that. You find what works for you. Healing is a journey, and everybody's journey looks different, right? And so I love being able to give people, hey, have you tried this? You know, what about that? Have you tried that? And you try it on and you see, like, does this fit? You know, does this fit for me? You know, and to your point, it might fit for a season, and then it's not something that you need to do anymore, or maybe it's something that you come back to. But yeah, it's not, it can't be so prescriptive that you're like, hey, does this work? If this worked for them, it'll certainly work for me. It has to feel good to you. It has to feel good. And what we say in soul coaching is, like, the soul loves the truth. So what I found is that, you know, even meditation, like, it's difficult for me sometimes, right? Like my mind is spinning all over the place. I'm like, but when I can sit in some of these different modalities I've tried, whether it's meditation or journaling, or clutter clearing, like I was talking about, you try it on and your soul will tell you, like, does this feel good?
Absolutely.
Right? What do I need right now? Asking yourself, check in with yourself. Let your soul tell you, what do I need right now? Okay, I need a little bit of quiet time. I need a little peace, a little meditation. All right, cool. Let me try that on. See how that feels. Hey, I feel like I need a release, you know, through writing. Okay, try that on for a little while. How's that working for you? You know, allow yourself to heal through that way.
On meditation, I think that people sometimes they get it a little confused, and they get discouraged because they think, oh, if I sit here for these 5 minutes, my mind is supposed to be quiet. But to me, meditation is the practice of doing that and allowing those things to come through, and then you get rid of them.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I enjoy about my meditation. Like, I'll start with my breath work, but also get into the meditation part of it. And whatever's coming through my mind, like, I let it be there and I acknowledge it, but then I also get rid of it. And it may come back, it may not, but that's the practice of meditation for me. It's not always just a 15-minute silence in my mind. That's just impossible to me, you know, given my life. But I just think that people shouldn't get discouraged in their practice of meditation. I think you should stay encouraged if you are trying to do it.
Yeah, two things on that. The first is, like, somebody told me, and I know nothing about horses, so y'all don't come for me talking about she was talking all the wrong things. I don't know. But apparently when you're training a horse, like a wild horse, you let it run for a while. Like, you're not supposed to, like, really try to control the horse. You're supposed to let it run, and then slowly but surely it'll come around and start to, you know, follow instruction and train and trust, right? So there's a process where you just let it be free. And that is what we're supposed to do in meditation with our minds. We're supposed to let those thoughts come and let them be free and acknowledge them. Don't judge them. Let them come. That's the part of the process. And then as you build that muscle, all of a sudden, your thoughts slow down, and then you can drop in. Wow. So that changed my perspective of meditation. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not doing anything wrong.
I love that.
You know? Yeah. And then the second thing to that you said is just like finding, you know, trying on different things, finding what fits for you and not judging it. Yeah. Like, it's okay. You don't, you know, try. If it doesn't work, it's okay. It's fine. You know? Yeah. But I think we tend to judge ourselves, and then that actually counteracts the work that we're trying to do. So if you try it and it doesn't work, try something new. Try again, it's okay. You know, or try it again, right? Yeah. So.
That's real. I appreciate you coming through.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you creating the space.
Absolutely.
This is
I appreciate
wonderful.
that. Thank you so much. It was great to have you on. And, you know, as soon as, you know, we met yesterday, I was like, she would be awesome to be on the platform. So I love everything that you're doing and what you're working on, and I'm grateful for the relationship for sure. Definitely. So thank you for being on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's
thank
go.
You. Yeah.
Yeah, for the underdogs, I'm an underdog.